In this video I will be showing you how to make a clothespin gun and needlepoint darts. What you will need is hot glue, tape or strand, a knife, scissors, a pen, a clothespin, Q-tips, straight pins, or needles. First, you will take your clothespin and you will take it apart so that you get only your metal clip and your two pieces of wood. Okay? You will take your two pieces of wood. You will measure about a half an inch back, or a quarter of an inch back, about right there. Make a line across. Come to the side, right here. Make a line across and up so that you can cut that, and across and up. Then you will fill in the entire thing, at least a little bit. Like so. Set that one aside and we'll move to the next one. You want to put them at the same spot, mark the same spot so you get a straight cut. Mark across and up, same way you did last time. Like this. The only difference is you're not going to fill this entire white part in. You're just going to make your line on top a little bit bigger so that it's about the same diameter as the original slot that was in the pin originally. You're going to take your knife and very carefully cut out the back edge of the one that you have filled in. And you will want to cut this hole to the same depth as the original slot. That's about right. Then you're going to take your knife and, coming from the front towards the back, very carefully cut out this middle piece. It should just snap off like that. Then smooth this out with a knife or file, like that, so that it is fairly smooth. Now you're going to set this aside and move to your next piece. On this one, it's going to be a little more different. It's going to be different. You're going to cut on the outside line towards the back and the front line, but you are not going to cut this middle chunk out. You are just going to cut these lines out and then take the piece out from in between the two lines. And again, you want to cut this to the same depth as the other slot, and as straightly as possible. It's best to do this on something soft like so. This way, if you slip, you don't ruin your knife. Then once you have hit about the same depth, you will repeat the process on the other side of the mark. As you can see here, the slot has been cut out. Now you have two slots on this one. You will smooth this one nice and flat on the inside of the notch and slightly sloped on this part. the second notch. And you'll see why in a moment. Now for the barrel, you're going to take your projectile, which for me is going to be a Q-tip. You're going to lay it down on the front of the pen and mark out just the edge of it. And then continue these marks all the way to the front of the clothespin. And through the middle piece. Then repeat the process on this one. The only difference on this one is there is no middle piece, so we don't have to worry about marking that or cutting it out. Now you're going to take your knife, and I find this is much easier with a straight edge, which I do not have, but what you're going to do is you're going to take it, you're going to put it on the front like this and pull back towards whatever's behind you, like this, away from yourself and away from your fingers. Repeat this process a handful of times on each side of your mark, like this. You can also roll it, then take the tip of your knife, poke it through, like that, and then core this bit of the knife. And that should be plenty deep enough. Repeat this process on this side. Now for the middle bit, right there in the middle, I would recommend doing this separate. First, I like to do it first. And on this one, you want to make it a little smaller so that it's easily wedged in to this bit. And then again, repeat that process on the front of the barrel. Now you core it. Like this. Make sure it's pretty level on the inside. You don't want it to be super angled, or else your darts will not come out straight. Oops. And now you've got 2 holes in them. Then you're going to put them together, pinch them slightly, take a Q-tip at the end, cut off, slide it in. If it does not fit freely, you need to keep going, which mine does not, so I'm going to keep going. Once you think it's deep enough, repeat the process as needed. And that fits nicely. So we are going to move on to the next part, attaching the 2 pieces. At this point, what you're going to want to do is take your 2 pieces and along the back of both of them, put a small line of hot glue. If this was tape, you would not do it this way, or string. I'll show you how you would do it if it was tape or string. If you do not have hot glue, in a moment. And now you're probably going to want to take a little bit of hot glue and put it on the very front without getting any in the barrel, on both sides of the barrel, on one side of the actual stock itself. Then you're just going to line these puppies up and squish them together. Don't worry if they don't squish all the way. It's not going to make a huge difference. Now take, and along the edges, if you have hot glue, I'm going to be putting a little drip inside of that crack. Mine has a little crack in it. I just like to put a little in there so it doesn't separate, which isn't fun, especially once it's loaded. It could seriously hurt you. Don't worry about getting it perfect. I've never done that in my life. Well, so far anyway. And this is a toothpick or clothespin or matchstick or whatever you want to call it. Cannon. It's a fun little toy. Now while that sits and dries, I'm going to show you how you make your darts. First thing you want to do is, if you have a straight pin, you have to get this little ball off the end. I like to pinch it in between some pliers or something like that. Just bend the needle itself around a little bit, and then normally just pops right out. If it's bent a little bit, just unbend it if necessary. Okay. Then you're going to take your Q-tip, and there's two ways you can do this. You can do it, cut it flat, which I find works. It works fine. I like to cut mine at an angle, slight angle. Doesn't have to be steep. And this just gives it a little more penetration. Even if your needle falls off, that's still pretty pointy. Next step, get your needle. And this one's too bent. Sorry about that. Okay. Take your needle, and through the very center of a Q-tip, there's a little hole naturally. So you just poke your needle through that, then put your needle in like so. So you got about a 3/4 of an inch sticking out. Take your hot glue and just put a little teeny tiny bead right there. Then set that to dry. By now, you should have your gun dried. Now I'm going to show you how you load it and how you fire it. I personally like, on the side that has these two notches, like to take my saw knife, or whatever you have, and just cut a little notch right here in the front. I'd recommend doing this always before you put the gun, or after the gun you put the gun together, because if you do it before, you normally break the tip off. Whereas now, the tip is secure. Take your clip. This is how you're going to get it ready. On the front hole, slide it in, just as if you were putting the paper clip back together, like so. Push this forward until it snaps into that little groove you made, or didn't make, whatever. And then it should be standing like this. And at this point, you could shoot it. It's probably going to stay in, but I don't want it to fall out, so I'm just going to put a little bead of hot glue right across the metal piece of the trigger. like that. And just set that aside. Now, your dart should be dry. Mine is. And you still have this one end on there, probably. Cut this very flat, if at all possible. Like that. Anywhere you want, you can make it longer, shorter, whatever. I just like to snip it. Then you take it, and I personally like to put a little more hot glue on the needle itself, just a teeny tiny bit right there on the end. I find that this causes it to hold about 100 times better. And you just let that dry. Check your pin, make sure it hasn't moved. If it has, then it's probably going to need to be re-glued. Mine personally didn't, but I've missed a few spots, so I'm going to do that real quick. And by now it should be pretty cool. Just check your needle. That's nice and cool. And it's ready to fire. Now to fire it, all you do is you put your bolt, a little hot glue in there, down the middle. First, what you're going to do to load it, or cock it, you pull this back, like so. So that's in the second slot. Right there. Take your bolt, load it down the barrel. Toothpick, whatever. Anything pretty much fits. And now it's snugly held right in that notch we made. Then to fire it, all you do is you hold it up like this, and you pull the trigger. Like I said, I got a little bit of hot glue in there. I'm just going to take the piece and run it down the middle a few times. Try and clean that out a little bit. That should do it. Whoops. And I'd say these are good to shoot probably about 20 feet. I've had more than 20 feet shot, but normally, almost every time I shoot these, I get about 15 to 20 feet of range. And that's not range of how, with accuracy. That's how long it flies and is accurate. I've had them fly for more than 50 feet. When I found it, took me a while, measured it, and it had flown about 50 feet. And that's pretty darn good for a clothespin gun. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, comment, have fun, be careful, don't point this at anybody, it will hurt them. As usual, needles are dangerous.